Well, hello, everybody, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this event, and thanks to all the attendees for your interest in town government. And I was happy to hear the comments by Ivy, because I had the pleasure of recognizing Ivy several times at last year's town meeting, and she did a great job. She spoke, I think, at least 2 or 3 times, maybe more. And hopefully somebody else watching tonight will follow the same route, because our town government, our system of town government, is highly dependent upon public-spirited citizens such as yourselves volunteering to serve either in elective or appointive positions. With I think one single exception, there is no financial remuneration for any of this, but the compensation comes from satisfaction in being a part of the solution rather than part of the problem, and in helping our community. So my role tonight will be to describe the structure of Wellesley's town government and how it works. And following that, Casey Cato, town clerk, will explain the nuts and bolts of how to become involved by running for office, as Ivy did. And although it may sound daunting, as one who has to do it every year as moderator, let me assure you that it's not as complicated or difficult as it might seem. Now, just a little bit about the moderator, because a lot of people don't know what a moderator is or what the moderator does. But as previously indicated, it's an elective office for a 1-year term. I'm currently completing my 4th year, and I have to run for re-election each year. And there are 2 main roles that the moderator fulfills. The most visible role, and the one that most people identify with as being the moderator's role, is to preside at each year's annual town meeting and at any special town meetings that are held during the course of the year. And the town meeting is the town's legislative body, and I'll have much more to say about that a little bit later. A less well-known and certainly less visible role, but actually far more time-consuming and in many ways more consequential, is the moderator's responsibility as the sole appointing authority of 34 different positions in town, consisting of the members of 5 different committees. Just briefly listing them: that's the advisory committee, which has 15 members. The audit committee has 5 members. The community preservation committee has, I think, 9 members, and the moderator appoints 4 at-large members. The Human Resources Board has 5 members, and the Permanent Building Committee also has 5 members. And you can find out more information about all of these committees and all of the other town committees by going to the town's website, where they're all described. And I'm going to say some more about advisory later on, because advisory forms a unique role as sort of a conduit between the town's executive function and its legislative function. And before getting to our situation here in Wellesley, I just want to put some of it in context by explaining what cities are, what towns are, and how Massachusetts law governs each of them. In Massachusetts, we have approximately 350 cities and towns, maybe 40 cities, and the other 310 are towns. The cities are primarily the larger communities: Boston, Springfield, Worcester, and so forth. And the towns are everything else. And the municipalities in Massachusetts cover 100% of the land mass of Massachusetts. Unlike most states, once you get out of New England, we don't have any unincorporated areas where municipal services are provided by the counties. Although we do have counties in Massachusetts, and Wellesley is in Norfolk County. The county responsibilities now are largely limited to operation of the courts and the jails and reformatories. In cities, the executive functions reside in a mayor, who's generally elected at large. In some cases, the city council elects one of its own as the member, but for the most part, members are elected on a citywide basis. Mayors are elected on a citywide basis. And the executive functions in cities are carried out by an elected city council, generally consisting of 7 to 9 members and known by various names. For example, in Newton, it's called the Board of Aldermen, and there are various other names, but basically they're city councils, small legislative bodies in the cities. In towns, the executive office is a board of selectmen, and I guess I should be using the current nomenclature, which is select board. Wellesley had changed the name a couple of years ago, and many, if not most of the towns now refer to the former Board of Selectmen as select boards, representing the reality that women are now very prominent members of those executive bodies. Most commonly, select boards have 5 members, although there are some towns on the Cape that have 3, and there are a few towns that have 7. But basically, 5 is the number, elected at large. The legislative function in towns is performed by the town meeting. And there are 2 types of town meetings. In most of the towns in Massachusetts, the town meetings are open, which means that any resident can attend a town meeting, can speak on any issue, can make motions, propose amendments, and vote on any issue. But under the state law, larger cities and larger towns are given the option of having a representative or a limited or representative town meeting. And these are generally have anywhere from 100 to 300 representatives at the town meeting members. Wellesley has been a representative town meeting since the early 1930s. And in Wellesley, we have 240 elected town meeting members. We have 8 precincts in town, and there are 30 town meeting members elected on a staggered basis for 3-year terms each year. And Casey is going to explain in more detail that whole process. In representative town meetings, such as we have in Wellesley, any resident, irrespective of whether or not they're a town meeting member, can attend a town meeting, can speak on any issue, but only town meeting members can make motions and vote. So if we can get to slide number 1, Ari, I'll start describing the structure of our Wellesley town government, okay? Okay, so this slide shows all of the elective offices in Wellesley. And let me just call your attention first to the 5th blue circle from the left, town meeting members. These are the 240 town meeting members that I just described, and they constitute the legislative branch of Wellesley town government. All of the other circles on the slide represent elective offices, which are part of the executive branch of our town government. All elections take place each March, first Tuesday in March, in our annual town election. The moderator, which is the blue circle to the extreme left, is a 1-year term. All of the other offices in town, with the exception of Planning Board and Housing Authority, are for 3-year terms, and the Planning Board and Housing Authority have 5-year terms. All of these offices or boards, which have multiple members, generally 5 members, I think is the most common, are elected on a staggered basis, so that you only have some of the offices coming up each year, so that you always have experienced members and new members serving. None of these elective positions in Wellesley are compensated, except for the town clerk, which is actually a very full-time job. because we have a substantial number of elections which are supervised and run by the town clerk, as well as a myriad of other duties that the town clerk performs. And the names of the boards explain what their function is. For example, the school committee, way off to the right, is responsible for oversight of the and operation of the school district. The Board of Library Trustees runs the libraries. The Board of Public Works takes care of our roads, water, sewers. The Natural Resources Commission, Recreation Commission, Board of Health, all provide services and oversee the providing of services within the areas that their names indicate. And just way down at the bottom, off by itself, is the Municipal Light Board. In Wellesley, we have we're fortunate to have a municipal light plant. So as a result, we have great electric service, and quite frankly, in comparison to other cities and towns, great electric rates. And the Municipal Light Board consists of the 3 elected members of the Board of Public Works, plus 2 appointees who are appointed by the Select Board and who are people who have some expertise in power generation or the finances of an electrical system. Standing alone in the middle of the chart is the Select Board, which has 5 members elected, as I said, on a staggered basis, 2 elected in year 1, 2 in year 2, and in the 3rd year, the 5th member is elected. They're all elected, as I said, for 3-year terms. And the 5 members collectively serve as the town's chief executive office, or chief executive officer. The Select Board conducts regular meetings twice a month on Tuesdays, with many other meetings throughout the course of the year as needed. These meetings are all televised on Verizon and Comcast, or on live streamed on Wellesley Public Media. And I'm not going to attempt to explain the duties of the Select Board, other than to say that they are extensive and take 6 pages of the town bylaws to enumerate. And for anybody who's interested, you can take a look at pages 25 to 31 of the town's general bylaws to get some sense of the responsibilities of the Select Board. Probably the most significant function performed by the Select Board is to prepare and submit the annual budget to the town meeting. Right now we've got a town budget that's approaching $200 million. So it's obviously a substantial enterprise. And in addition, the Select Board has the responsibility of submitting a town-wide financial plan to each town meeting, which projects out likely expenditures over the course of the next 5 years, so that there can be some planning and coordination of what happens in the future. So that's chart number 1, showing all of the elective offices. Now, if we can go to chart number 2. Okay, now in these maroon boxes, what we have are all of the appointed committees in town. And if you follow the lines, you can see which elective office appoints which of the appointive committees. For example, the Planning Board appoints the Design Review Board. The Natural Resources Commission has a couple of appointive boards. The Select Board appoints some 13, I think, boards that are enumerated down at the bottom. In addition, the Select Board also has 2 very important individual appointments to make. One is the Executive Director, which I'll say a little bit more about in a few minutes. That's in I guess it's a light brown hexagon. As I said, I'll be talking about that in just a minute. And also, the select board appoints the town council. The moderator, my own office, appoints the 5 commissions or boards that I've previously enumerated. And the most well-known, of course, is the advisory committee. And I just want to say a few words about the advisory committee because of the important role that it plays in the town government as a conduit between the executive and the legislative. The advisory committee consists of 15 people appointed by the moderator. The 5 are appointed each year to a 3-year term, so that we always have, as I said, new blood, so to speak, and experienced members. It conducts weekly meetings, generally from September, maybe late August, through April, and then sporadically during the other 4 months of the year as needed. And once again, these are all televised or live streamed, I guess is the terminology, on Wellesley Public Media. And over the course of the year, the advisory committee will meet with every elective board, as well as with most of the, or many of the appointed committees. It reviews their budgets, their proposed bylaw changes, any zoning proposals, or any other initiatives presented by any of the elected or appointed boards. And also, under the Massachusetts state law, any 10 citizens can put together a citizen's petition to get an issue on the agenda for the town meeting. And those 2 are evaluated, vetted, and analyzed by the advisory committee. Shortly before the annual town meeting and before each special town meeting, the advisory committee publishes an advisory report, which provides an in-depth analysis of all of the issues that might come before the town meeting members at the upcoming meeting. And at the meeting itself, the chair of the advisory committee will make a verbal recommendation on all motions to be acted upon by the town meeting members. So just a word about committees. I know the topic of tonight is how to run for elective office, but another way of getting involved in town government is to make your interest in one of these boards or committees in which you have some qualifications or expertise. Make your interest known, because this is a good way to get started in town government. And you can do this either by contacting the appropriate appointing authority, such as the moderator or the select board, or you can do it all online by filling out one of the town's volunteer application forms, which are submitted to the executive director's office, and then they're referred to the appropriate appointing authority. So the 2 slides that we've just gone through constitute collectively the executive branch of Wellesley's town government, plus, as I said, the 240 town meeting members are the legislative branch. Now, just very briefly, Ari, if we can go to chart number 3. And there it is. And this one is even a little more intimidating. But what it does is it adds all of the directors and department heads of the various departments which provide the town's public services. And I'm not going to go through each of them, but their titles are largely self-explanatory. Not shown, of course, are the more than 1,000, I think it's maybe as much as 1,100 to 1,200 employees who actually teach in our schools, respond to emergencies, keep us safe and healthy, maintain our roads, provide us with water, electricity, maintain our parks, and so forth. The largest of the public employers is not unexpectedly the school department. There are at least 2/3 and maybe even more of the town's employees are employed either as teachers or paraprofessionals or clerical, secretarial, or administrative positions in the school department. And the 5 other departments which have the largest number of employees, not necessarily in this order, are, of course, the police and fire departments, the facilities maintenance department, the public works department, and the libraries. So with that explanation, I now want to turn to the legislative branch of Wellesley's town government, which is the town meeting. So if we can take that slide down, Ari, and I'll just be talking now about the town meeting. So in towns in Massachusetts, it's the select board and the various other elected and appointed boards that submit their proposed budgets and proposed changes in zoning and other bylaws for the annual and special town meetings. But, and it's an important but, it's the town meeting that disposes by all of those proposals. No budget, no zoning bylaw, no other amendment, or anything else that requires legislative approval can take effect unless and until it's approved by the town meeting. Now, our annual town meeting, according to our town bylaw, begins no earlier than the last Monday of March and no later than the last day of May. However, with the exception of the last 3 years during which we've been having our meetings on Zoom due to the COVID, and hopefully that's in the rearview mirror, I'm optimistic that this year's annual town meeting will be in person. But you know, with the exception of the last 2 or 3 years, which were extraordinary, the town meetings in Wellesley always begin on the last Monday of the month of March. And whether that will continue in the future, of course, it can't be known, but my expectation is that it will. Town meetings are held on consecutive Monday and Tuesday evenings in the middle school auditorium. And we meet from week to week, Monday and Tuesday, until we complete the work of the town meeting. Generally, the annual town meeting takes anywhere from 6 to 7 sessions, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, depending upon what's on the agenda. But 6 to 7 sessions is a pretty good average. The meetings begin at 7 p.m., assuming that the presence of a quorum is there, and a quorum consists of 50% plus 1 of the 240 town meeting members. So as soon as the town clerk informs the town moderator that there are 121 members present, the gavel comes down and the meeting is called to order. And the meetings run until approximately 10:30 in the evening at an appropriate break in the proceedings, either just before or just after that, we adjourn to the next session. And in addition to the annual town meeting, which, as I've just described, takes place in late March and early to mid-April, we have a special town meeting most years, and sometimes 2 special town meetings in the fall and winter. For example, this past October, we had a town meeting, special town meeting, to deal primarily with the appropriation of funds for the renovation of the interior of the historic town hall. And then there are some 7 or 8 other time-sensitive issues that also appeared on the warrant. Now, as I previously indicated, the moderator presides at all town meetings, and just sort of the cast of characters, so to speak. By statute, we have to have a town moderator. We have to have a town clerk who is up on the stage at the Height Middle School with the moderator. The town clerk maintains an accurate record of the proceedings. We have to have a town council present who provides advice on any legal issues that may arise that the moderator is unable to answer on his own, his or her own. Then other essential participants in our town meeting are the town's public information officer. I think many of you know Stephanie Hawkinson, and she does a great job displaying all motions and PowerPoint presentations on a slide on the large screen that is set up on the stage, so that we have a visual as well as a verbal explanation of what's before the town meeting. And also the chair of the advisory committee, which changes from year to year. This year it's Sean Baker, who was in his third year on that committee, presents the advisory's recommendation to the town meeting on all motions that are submitted for a vote. At the first meeting, first night of the meeting, there's a lot of, I guess you'd call it pomp and circumstance. We have the fire department honor guard and bagpipes, and the colors come marching in. We have obviously the national anthem, Pledge of Allegiance. There's a non-denominational invocation by a local clergy person, and memorial resolutions for town meeting members and others active in town government who have passed away over the past year. The moderator then spends 10 or 15 minutes explaining the rules and procedures and guidelines that will be followed during the meeting. Just examples of some of the most important ones. There's a limit of no more than 5 minutes to speak, that nobody can speak twice until all who wish to speak have spoken once, that non-town meeting members can speak, but only town meeting members can make motions, propose amendments, or vote. There are to be no personal attacks on anybody or questioning of motives, that everybody should focus on issues, not personalities, that if anybody has a personal or financial interest on an issue, they're not precluded from talking or voting on that, but they do have a responsibility for disclosing it so everybody knows where they're coming from. And most importantly, stay on topic. And that's one of the moderator's most important responsibilities, which is making sure that all speakers stay on topic. The moderator also describes the voting procedures that will be followed for the first 90 years or so of Wellesley's town meeting. This was done by people shouting out yay and nay, and the moderator would make a judgment who has it. It's not just the loudest, it's the most. And if there's any question, the moderator would call for a standing vote, and that sort of got it done. But at a special town meeting that was held in the fall of 2019, Wellesley decided to come into the 21st century by experimenting with electronic voting devices, and we're going to be using them again in the annual town meeting that's going to start in a few months, and I suspect that's the way that we're going to be voting for the foreseeable future. And so then, after the explanation by the moderator of the guidelines, rules, and procedures, we start the business of the town meeting. And the order of business is dictated by the warrant. And the warrant is the formal agenda for the meeting, which is developed and prepared by the select board with some input from the moderator. And the topics which are listed in the moderator for consideration at the town meeting are called articles. And under each article, there is one or more, sometimes several motions, which are what the town meeting members actually vote upon. And as each article is brought up by the moderator, a motion for the moderator will call upon the sponsor or the proponent of the article, of the motion, will make a motion of what the article proposes to accomplish, and will then provide a presentation, usually with slides, about what is being requested and why, and the supporting reason and rationale. And after that presentation, and most of these are relatively short, some, for example, when we're dealing with an omnibus budget of $190 million, it takes considerably more time. But for the most part, they're 5 minutes or less. And after that, the moderator will call upon the chair of the advisory committee to give the recommendation of the advisory committee, and the chair steps up and indicates what the advisory committee has voted, what the vote was for and against, and what the reasons were for those that voted affirmatively and for those that voted against. And as I previously indicated, prior to the meeting, there's a much more detailed analysis of all articles in the town advisory report. And after the advisory chair's recommendation, the moderator opens the floor for debate. Now, everybody thinks all of these are covered by Robert's Rules of Order, but Wellesley does things its own way. And we follow what a book called Town Meeting Time, which is published by the Mass Moderators Association. And I refer to it as the Moderator's Bible. And it has its own guidelines. And we also have our own customs. But two of the most obvious distinctions are that it's not necessary for motions to be seconded. And I guess most significant of all, in Wellesley, we have unlimited debate, no moving the question or other motions to close off the discussion. And as moderator, I and my predecessors try very hard to honor this practice by giving everybody who wishes to speak on any issue a chance to say whatever they want to say, whether it's pro or con. But obviously, sometimes things start to become repetitive and drag on, and moderator gets some sense of the movement of shoulders and so forth of people in the audience, and will say something like, well, I still see a number of hands raised, but does anybody have something to say that hasn't been said before? And that usually, people usually take the hint at that point, and then we're ready for the vote. Generally, a simple majority is required to pass a motion, including all budgetary matters. However, state law requires that most motions that deal with amendments of the zoning bylaw require a 2/3 vote, as do any motions that are going to require the pledging of the town's credit to get a loan for some of the more expensive projects, such as building a school or anything of that nature. And the moderator then declares the vote on the motion, closes that particular article, opens up the next article for consideration. And this process continues until all of the articles have been disposed of, at which point there's a formal motion by a member of the by the select board to dissolve that town meeting. And as I indicated, typically, 5, 6, or 7 nights is what it takes to complete the warrant for an annual town meeting. Special town meetings generally can be completed in 1 night, sometimes 2. Now, just in conclusion, for those who prioritize speed and top-down control, the town meeting may not seem to be the most efficient way of conducting the business of, as I said, a nearly $200 million a year enterprise. But for those who value broad-based citizen participation in local government decision-making, the town meeting system that is unique to New England is, in my opinion, the purest form of representative democracy that we have in this country. But its continued existence is totally dependent upon people like you who are willing to contribute their time by stepping up to the plate by either running for elective office or volunteering to serve on one of the committees that I've described.